In the winter of 1887, railroad laborers cutting through Nevada's remote desert uncovered something that should never have been found. Beneath the collapsed remains of the Golden Rose Saloon lay 97 female skeletons, arranged in shallow layers of earth and stone. Each body bore the same silent testimony: fractures, restraints, unmistakable signs of deliberate violence. The territorial report was sealed almost immediately. 3 officers assigned to the investigation requested transfers within days, citing nervous exhaustion and an inability to continue. For more than a century, the grave remained an unanswered horror, a rumor buried beneath sand and silence. Only recently uncovered documents would finally reveal the truth. The story of 4 sisters who built the most methodical murder enterprise in American frontier history. Before we continue, understand this. What makes this case unbearable is not superstition or folklore. The terror lies in how ordinary it all appeared. The Everhart sisters operated for nearly a decade without suspicion, hiding behind respectability, exploiting frontier lawlessness, and corrupting those meant to protect. Their crimes flourished in plain sight, accumulating a fortune that would equal millions today. This story is a reminder that the most frightening monsters were not imagined. They were human. Silver Creek, Nevada, was born in 1868 from a moment of chance. Prospector Jacob Steinberg, caught in a rare winter storm, sought shelter in a shallow cave in the barren hills, 40 miles southeast of Carson City. There, flickering in the lamplight, he noticed veins of silver glittering in the rock. Within months, canvas tents multiplied into wooden shanties. By the end of the year, nearly 4,000 souls crowded the desert, most of them men chasing fortune under a merciless sun where summers scorched past 100 degrees and winters froze breath in the lungs. By 1870, Silver Creek had become one of Nevada's most prosperous mining towns. The Silver Dollar Mine ran day and night, its tunnels plunging more than 600 feet underground. The air was thick with dust and blasting powder. Machinery screamed without pause. In that constant chaos, no strange sound lingered long enough to invite questions. The mine employed over 800 men, and their presence fueled an economy of boarding houses, saloons, shops, and entertainments. The town's isolation worked in its favor. Law enforcement was a full day's hard ride away, and territorial officials rarely ventured into the region unless forced. It was a place where morality blurred and silence was currency. Main Street stretched nearly 3/4 of a mile, lined with rough saloons and sturdier businesses. At its center stood the Silver Creek General Store, owned by German immigrant Hinrich Müller. It was more than a shop. It served as post office, bank, and rumor mill. News passed through Müller's hands before it reached anyone else. That role would later prove critical when women began to vanish. Silver Creek's population imbalance shaped everything. Men outnumbered women nearly 30-1. The few respectable women, wives of mine foremen, a school teacher, seamstresses, visiting relatives, were treated with exaggerated reverence. Their presence was protected, almost sacred. This misplaced chivalry would become the perfect shield for the Everhart sisters. They arrived in early May of 1870, stepping down from the weekly supply wagon as desert wildflowers briefly painted the land in yellow and purple. Greta, 32, led the group. Wilhelmina, 30. Margot, 28. Adelaide, 25. They carried only worn leather trunks and letters of introduction claiming endorsements from Carson City businessmen. They spoke of opening a boarding house, a refined place for working women. Greta commanded attention immediately. Tall for her era, with auburn hair pinned in an elaborate Eastern style and piercing green eyes that measured everyone she met, she spoke with polished confidence. Her hands were always gloved, untouched by labor. Wilhelmina was quieter, pale-haired, sharp-eyed, her precision revealing a mind built for calculation. Margot radiated warmth, dark hair, gentle hazel eyes, and a practiced sympathy that drew trust effortlessly. Adelaide, the youngest, appeared almost angelic, golden-haired and blue-eyed, her beauty disarming. Yet beneath that softness lay a rigid resolve. They rented a 3-story pine building at the edge of Main Street, once a failed mercantile. Its stone foundation ran deeper than most, with an extensive basement excavated years earlier. They paid a full year's rent in advance. Within 2 months, the Golden Rose opened its doors. The transformation stunned the town. Lace curtains from San Francisco, gaslighting, imported furniture, pianos salvaged from failed hotels, a library of books no one expected to find in the desert. The first floor became a refined restaurant and boarding space for respectable women. It earned a reputation for cleanliness, excellent food, and civility, a sanctuary in a lawless town. But the Golden Rose served other purposes. The second floor, accessible through a discreet side entrance, became Silver Creek's most exclusive brothel. Unlike the gaudy houses along Main Street, this space was quiet, elegant, restrained. Wealthy clients paid dearly for discretion. The third floor, the sisters claimed, was private. In truth, it housed women who answered their advertisements. Women not yet assigned roles. The first disappearance came in August 1870. Maria Fernandez was 19. She came from a struggling Mexican-American family in Carson City. Her father, Diego, worked when he could. Her mother coughed through sleepless nights. 4 younger siblings depended on Maria's wages. When she saw an advertisement promising respectable work, steady pay, and advancement, she answered. Margot's letter was warm and precise. $4 a week, room and board, a prepared room on the 3rd floor, instructions on travel, assurance of safety, and questions about Maria's family, finances, health, and whether anyone would expect frequent letters. Maria arrived hopeful. Her early letters home spoke of kindness, comfort, and relief. But soon the tone shifted. Adelaide asked more questions. Wilhelmina limited her correspondence. Maria was moved to a basement room without windows. Strange sounds came at night, dismissed as rats. Her final letter was dated September 12, 1870. Then silence. When Diego Fernandez made the 3-day journey to Silver Creek, Greta met him with sympathy and a note allegedly from Maria. It claimed she had left for San Francisco, lured by impossible wages. The paper was stained, the ink unfamiliar, the story inconsistent. But the sheriff dismissed concerns. Young women moved on, he said. That was frontier life. In November, another woman arrived, then another. The pattern began, and no one was listening. This is where the true machinery of the Golden Rose began to turn. By the end of 1870, the disappearances no longer stood alone. They formed a quiet rhythm, one that blended seamlessly into the restless migration of the American frontier. Another young woman arrived. Another settled briefly into the Golden Rose. Another was spoken of in the past tense. Each vanishing carried its own explanation. San Francisco, Denver, a sudden marriage, a better wage elsewhere. In a boomtown where people came and went like dust on the wind, no single absence seemed worth pursuing. Charlotte Weber arrived in November, answering an advertisement printed in German-language newspapers across Nevada and California. She was 22, newly orphaned, and alone in a country that had taken everything familiar from her. Cholera had claimed her parents and brother during the Atlantic crossing, leaving Charlotte with nothing but her sewing skills and a halting grasp of English. For a time, those skills sustained her in Virginia City, stitching dresses for the wives of men who struck silver and believed themselves immune to loss. But when the economy faltered, luxury became a liability. Orders slowed, rent did not. The Golden Rose promised stability, respectability, a place where a woman's labor would be valued. Charlotte arrived carrying her tools, her prayer book, and a single suitcase. Within weeks, she too was gone. The explanation sent to her surviving relatives in Germany spoke of romance and opportunity, an elopement with a minor heading east. No address was provided. Through 1871 and 1872, the Everhart sisters perfected their system. Advertisements appeared across the Western territories, Nevada, California, Colorado, Utah, always carefully worded, always respectable. They promised safety in an unsafe land, certainty in uncertain times. Margot crafted each line to resonate with desperation. Letters flowed in, and with each response, the sisters gathered information, family ties, finances, literacy, likelihood of being missed. Those with strong connections rarely heard back. Those without were invited immediately. Each sister played her role with precision. Greta oversaw strategy and ensured cooperation from officials. Wilhelmina recorded everything: names, dates, possessions, turning lives into ledgers. Margot recruited, consoled, persuaded. Adelaide managed what happened below ground. New arrivals were treated kindly at first. Comfortable rooms, light duties, friendly conversation. This was not mercy, it was calibration. Over weeks, sometimes months, the sisters learned each woman's fears, habits, handwriting, and hopes. They studied how she spoke of her family, how often she wrote, what she valued most. All of it would later be repurposed. By 1873, the Golden Rose was considered the safest place for women in Silver Creek. A paradox no one questioned. The sheriff dismissed concerns with practiced indifference. Family members who traveled long distances seeking answers were met with sympathy, forged letters, and finality. The sisters' explanations were supported by Hinrich Müller, whose store processed their mail and profited from their purchases; by Dr. Elias Hoffman, whose license had been revoked back east and who now found protection in secrecy; by gifts, bribes, and leverage. The basement changed during these years. What began as storage expanded silently under Tom Brennan's hands. Night after night, he dug. He was paid well and asked nothing. The chambers grew deeper, branching beneath alleyways, merging with natural caves. Chains were installed, drains carved, walls padded, lime stored in sacks. Bodies were removed under cover of darkness, transported to remote desert sites. Possessions were cataloged and sold through wagon drivers like Samuel Garrett, who never asked why the sisters always had so much to dispose of. By 1874, murder had become routine. The sisters diversified. Blackmail joined profit. Their brothel clientele included men whose reputations could not survive exposure. Secrets were harvested. Files grew. Payments ensured silence. Law enforcement looked away. Then, in early 1876, they made a mistake. Rose McGillicuddy arrived with education, confidence, and a family who would not stop asking questions. She had worked as a governess in Sacramento until financial ruin dismissed her. Margot's advertisement promised refined employment for educated women. The pay was generous. Rose hesitated, But desperation has its own gravity. From the beginning, she noticed what others had not. Locked rooms that were never opened. Sounds in the night that did not belong to wood or vermin. Dr. Hoffman's visits, always after midnight, always to the basement. Contradictory explanations and belongings, too many, too personal, too valuable to be abandoned. Jewelry with inscriptions, prayer books, photographs, tools of trade, keepsakes no woman would leave behind willingly. Rose wrote to her sister Margaret on March 10, 1876. Her words were careful, but fear crept between the lines. She counted items belonging to at least 20 women. She had witnessed only 3 departures. When Greta claimed a woman named Sarah Jenkins had left for love, Rose asked why Sarah's savings remained under her mattress, why her mother's cross still hung beside the bed. The explanation insulted logic. Greta's composure cracked. Rose watched Dr. Hoffman more closely. 3 nights a week, medical bag in hand, always to the basement. When questioned, Wilhelmina changed her story repeatedly. Consumption, recovery, discreet treatments. None aligned with what Rose observed. On March 18, 1876, before dawn, Rose followed the doctor's path. Behind a concealed door lay a narrow staircase descending deeper than the original foundation. Below, chambers carved into stone, chains embedded in walls, rings set into floors, drainage channels stained dark. The air burned with chemicals and decay, and there, sorted with methodical care, were the remnants of dozens of lives. Clothing stacked by size, jewelry wrapped and labeled, letters bundled, photographs piled without reverence, ledgers detailing arrivals, valuations, deaths, human existence reduced to inventory. Rose did not scream. She retreated. She understood immediately that discovery meant death. Her escape required deception. She crafted a story of a dying grandmother, sent a telegram through Muller that doubled as a warning to her family, forged a response. The sisters questioned her intensely, searched her belongings, watched her leave. She did not return to Silver Creek. In Carson City, Rose gave her testimony to Territorial Marshal James Hartwell. She brought evidence smuggled from the Golden Rose, names, descriptions, fragments of proof. Hartwell believed her. On April 15, 1876, he arrived in Silver Creek with deputies, judges, physicians. The sisters' calm dissolved. Records were hidden, doors blocked, lies tangled. The basement told the truth. What investigators found exceeded even Rose's warnings. Cells sealed from the outside, soundproofed chambers, evidence of repeated use, and ledgers, Wilhelmina's careful handwriting, documenting 97 murders. The trial that followed would shock the world. But long before the gallows, before headlines and verdicts, before justice finally spoke, there was only silence. Years of it. And beneath the Golden Rose, the quiet accounting of lives no one believed were missing. The investigation unfolded with a gravity that matched the horror it revealed. Marshal Hartwell's men worked in silence, their lanterns cutting through the thick, chemical-stung darkness beneath the Golden Rose. Even seasoned lawmen faltered in those chambers. Some stepped out to retch. Others simply stood motionless, staring at what remained of nearly 100 lives reduced to property and profit. Wilhelmina's ledgers became the spine of the case. Each page was orderly, deliberate, unemotional. Names, ages, origins, estimated value of belongings, dates of arrival, dates of death, notes on whether family inquiries had been satisfied or required additional attention. The handwriting never wavered. It read like the records of a dry goods merchant, except the inventory was human. The scale was undeniable. 97 women documented. Mexican and Chinese immigrants, Irish girls, Germans, Americans from the East, seamstresses, servants, teachers, nurses, some educated, some barely literate. All chosen for one reason: they could disappear. Beyond Silver Creek, the desert told its own story. Guided by notes found in the records and journals recovered from Dr. Elias Hoffman's residence, search parties located shallow graves scattered miles from town. Harsh conditions had erased many traces, but fragments remained. Bones, fabric, jewelry fused with sand. Each discovery reinforced what the ledgers had already confessed. Dr. Hoffman broke quickly. Faced with execution, he chose testimony. His journals detailed experiments with poisons, suffocation, and restraint. He wrote clinically, fascinated by efficiency, by how the body failed under controlled conditions. He described procedures meant to leave minimal marks. He described helping remove identifying features. His words were colder than any confession forced at gunpoint. Tom Brennan was arrested soon after. He admitted to digging but claimed ignorance of purpose. The court did not accept the distinction. When the sisters were brought to Carson City, their reputation collapsed overnight. Newspapers from across the country converged, printing headlines that struggled to contain the enormity of the crimes. House of Horror. Silver Creek Massacre. Women who killed for profit. The trial began on September 20th, 1876, moved to the Territorial Opera House to contain the crowds. Inside, the atmosphere was heavy, reverent, furious. Families of the dead filled the seats. Some carried photographs. Some clutched letters never answered. Rose McGillicuddy testified first. Her voice did not shake. She described the locked rooms, the sounds at night, the items that did not belong to anyone still alive. She described the basement chambers, the smell, the ledgers. Her words formed the narrative spine the prosecution needed. She was not dramatic. She did not exaggerate. She simply told the truth. Then the evidence came. Boxes of belongings arranged by victim, dresses, shoes, prayer books, sewing tools, locks of hair tied with ribbon, jewelry inscribed with names that would never be spoken again. The opera house fell silent as each item was catalogued. The physical weight of absence pressed on everyone present. Family members followed. Diego Fernandez stood and spoke of his daughter Maria, of hope, of letters that stopped, of the journey to Silver Creek, of being dismissed. His grief filled the room in a way no document ever could. Others followed. Sisters, mothers, brothers, each telling the same story with different names. Dr. Hoffman's testimony was the most disturbing. He spoke in medical language, detached and precise, explaining how the sisters refined their methods over time, how each death became easier, faster, quieter. His journals were entered into evidence. The jury did not look away. The defense attempted explanations. Frontier desperation, coercion, Greta's dominance. None held. The records proved participation by all four. Their handwriting appeared throughout the ledgers. Witnesses placed each sister in active roles. This was not survival. It was enterprise. On November 15th, 1876, the jury returned its verdict in under 2 hours. Guilty. All four sisters were sentenced to death by hanging. Judge William Harrison's words echoed through the hall. He spoke of betrayal, of calculated cruelty, of the failure of institutions that allowed such crimes to continue unchecked. He spoke of the need to remember the victims, not as numbers, but as people whose trust had been used against them. The execution took place on January 10th, 1877. Nearly 5,000 spectators gathered. Some traveled hundreds of miles. The gallows stood stark against the winter sky. The sisters approached differently. Greta spoke briefly, claiming circumstance and necessity. Wilhelmina prayed in silence. Margot smiled thinly, as if still performing. Adelaide wept, pleading, insisting she had been led. The trapdoors fell together. Silver Creek never recovered. The Golden Rose was demolished within days. The site remained vacant, avoided, whispered about. As the silver vein dwindled, the town emptied. By the mid-1880s, only foundations remained, half buried by sand and time. When railroad workers uncovered the grave in 1887, it was less a discovery than a confirmation. The truth had already been written. It had simply waited to be unearthed. Today, little remains of Silver Creek. Stones, scrub, wind. Historians visit, criminologists study. Visitors report an unease that does not fade. Perhaps it is imagination, or perhaps places remember. The story of the Everhart sisters endures not because of its scale alone, but because of its familiarity. They were not monsters in shadows. They were respected businesswomen. They smiled. They paid rent. They hosted dinners. They wrote letters. They succeeded because society looked away, because isolation made disappearance ordinary, because prejudice decided whose lives mattered, because corruption silenced warning signs, because trust was easier than doubt. Their legacy is not only one of horror, but of warning, that systems fail quietly, that evil does not always announce itself, and that the most dangerous predators are often those who appear the most respectable. Beneath the desert, the past waits, and sometimes it is found.